Hi everyone, I'm Pari. Welcome to Living Your Best Life with Eddie Stone, founder and CEO of Touchstone Essentials. Hello Eddie, how are you?
Harry, I'm doing great. Doing great. It's been a great day. I hope it's going to be a great day for you. I guess it's morning for you, but we're doing well here, and we're starting to feel ourselves being able to get out of the house a little bit. So we're optimistic and excited.
Okay, great to hear that. Okay, Eddie, we start the questions now. Okay, there are a
Sure.
few questions from Mr. Philip Freeman. What do you think about Wim Hof deep breathing and cold showers?
You know the that particular technique of deep breathing where I believe if memory serves me correctly, you take 30, in quick succession, you take 30 quick deep breaths and then you run through a cycle. And I think there's a lot of people that follow this practice, report good health. They look good. They've got good, clear skin. And I'll tell you right up front, I'm a big believer in the role that deep breathing and deep breathing exercises can play in supporting good health. Supporting the way the body gets rid of toxins, even in some respects, how it helps to manage some issues associated with stress and cardiovascular disease. And so I'm a big fan. I don't know enough about the various techniques to say that one is better than the other, but I love it when people have uh, deep breathing practices and exercises. I'm a big advocate, and so I think it's a great practice. I will say that I've subscribed to a magazine here in the States called Sports Illustrated for probably close to 45 years. And it's a magazine that used to come out weekly. I don't know if it still does, but it doesn't seem to come every week now. But anyway, it focuses on sports and sometimes sort of different aspects of sport in the US and around the world. And one of the founders of that practice, they had a really terrific article on him about a year ago. And it was just amazing by controlling his breath, how cold of water he could go into for fairly long periods of time and be able to swim and move, when most of the time you think of going in water as cold as they were describing and sort of your muscles locking up and people getting panicked and dying or drowning. So there's no question that the technique can be empowering for people that really know it. And so I'm a big fan in terms of that question. Anybody that really has a good, strong, deep breathing exercise, I'm an advocate of. And in terms of cold showers, really think the same thing. I think it does and can encourage the body from a detoxification standpoint and other positive health attributes. I don't think everybody's capable. So many people I don't think have the nerve to really do it. I certainly know from a simple standpoint on occasions when I need to kind of wake myself up or whatever it is, a cold shower is one of those things to sort of get the blood rushing, so to speak. That's what I think anecdotally, but that's really what happens is it improves blood flow. And if you can get increased blood flow throughout the body, of course, there's all kinds of health benefits. So I'm a fan, and I think it's great if somebody's got that willpower to do that. I applaud them.
Yeah, and you're talking about cold shower. I have tried. After cold shower, you feel warm right after, it's
Yeah,
weird. I don't know why.
almost tingly, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, and next question, Eddie. I have been told zinc and quinine help avoid coronavirus. Is this true, and how much US has a stockpile?
Well, zinc and quinine have been used to help people manage the flu for, really decades from an anecdotal standpoint. There's a little bit of modest research to suggest that if it's used while somebody has the flu, it can shorten the duration of the flu, kind of speed up the recovery time. But there's no clinical research to suggest that either of them treat the flu or cure the flu. And I'm unaware of anything related to the COVID-19 virus to suggest that either. And I'm I try to spend a lot of time, reading on the subject matter, trying to make sure as I'm on shows or whatever, I'm prepared and how it might impact our business. I think people are wishful. I don't think there's probably anything wrong if under a doctor's advice, someone that's trying to recover or has been diagnosed with COVID-19 would use those substances. I mean, probably anything that generally can be favorable when a person has a cold or a flu could be beneficial. But to say somehow that it's a preventive measure or a true treatment, I do not think there's anything out there that has any sort of peer review research, even with a very loose definition, to support those statements. And I don't believe in these theories that the U.S. is somehow hoarding mass quantities because it's a treatment. It just doesn't seem rational to me. You've got 1,000+ people or close to 1,000+ people dying every day. We're at 88,000 deaths in our country. Current trajectory has us heading towards 2,000+ deaths per day by the end of June. And so if there were some real trick to this, I have to believe that people in authority would make people aware. I mean, now is the time, right? There's no reason that stockpile would not be utilized, because the death and devastation and the suffering is happening right here, right now, today in front of us. And so I think some of these ideas are because people are desperate for a solution. And I understand that. We had one of our staff members has her mom in a convalescent facility for older people. And her mom, they were told, tested positive for the virus. And the way those old folks' homes are here, because the devastation's been so dramatic, the family can't go see them. And her mom has suffered from a stroke in the past, and so it's difficult to communicate with her. So they've been about 3 weeks with only bits of information every couple of days from the residential facility telling them that her fever broke, she seems to be recovering. And then today they found out that she has really beat it, right? She's past the time period, but 5 other people on her end of the building had died. So, you've got all this tragedy right here, right now, today. And I can't imagine if there was any type of relief or anything with any legitimate confidence that it wouldn't be utilized, because what would we be waiting for? And so these things are so devastating. I think people cling on to any sort of idea that they can, and I think having zinc and things like that around is okay. But people shouldn't fool themselves that it's a treatment. It's not. And by itself, it's not a prevention. If people want to give them the best chance possible, try to avoid sick people. That's the best thing you can do, is wash your hands vigorously with soap for 20 seconds and try to avoid sick people. And, if you really want to try to serve society, I know people have these mixed ideas about wearing a mask, that it infringes on their personal freedom. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is you're trying to keep yourself from infecting someone else. It's not so much that you prevent the breathing of it, right? It's just that if you were to sneeze or the cough, you don't spray it everywhere. And here's my opinion. If they had a parent in one of these older residential facilities, wouldn't they want everybody going in there wearing a mask, just to make sure they were lowering their risk of infecting their elderly parents, who we know are at more risk for this? I believe they now believe these older folks in these homes are accounting for about a third of all deaths in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world. So I don't know. People have got these ideas, but you know what? If you want to keep from getting it, keep your hands washed and stay away from sick people, and then try to do the best you can with what you eat and improving your immune system and managing your stress and things like that. So I don't think there's a magic bullet. I sure wish there were. I wish there were a easy answer.
So we can live healthy if we have a very good immune system, right, Eddie?
Well, here's the thing we've learned. the people that are most vulnerable are people that are older and people with compromised immune systems or other underlying risk factors, such as obesity and diabetes. That seems to be the strongest indications that your risk are higher. If you take someone that's reasonably healthy, they've got no sort of identified other issues, right? They take care of themselves. They do their best with diet and exercise and things like that. You know, their risks for this disease are probably very small. There's always an outlier. There's always some healthy person that we're like scratching our head, like, what the heck happened? But for the most part, for people that are taking care of themselves, don't have those risk factors, their chances of successfully navigating this are much higher. So I really wish folks would use their common sense. You know, I realize that the last 8 to 9 weeks have been extremely uncomfortable to try to stay at home. And really, for those individuals that have work that didn't go on, they had a small restaurant or a bar or something. I mean, it's just terrible. It's just terrible what's happened to them in their business. And I don't know what to say about that, right? Except we hope that there's local, state, and federal support to help them get back on their feet. So they're casualties of this, and it's real pain. You know, if you had a business you spent your whole life working on, and because of this, it's goes out of business, that's a death, in and of itself. It's a different kind of death. And so I realize all of us, we're managing these dual worries, risk, and responsibilities, and it's not easy to know how to decide, mm-hmm. right? And I empathize with people that say, well, let's just go back out there and go back to work, and they have these ideas of what's called herd immunity. But let's be clear about what that means. Herd immunity doesn't mean that the herd together has a better immune system. That's not it. That doesn't mean that, okay, 1 + 1 isn't 2, it's 3. Herd immunity just means that the weak have died. That's what it means. And so if our society decides the weak just have to die, so we can go on, okay, but just be honest about what you're deciding. If that's the decision, be honest with yourself about that statement. That means the weak, the elderly, their risk of dying is greater, and they may in fact die. That's what herd immunity means. And someone may say, well, I think that's the economy is more important. So that's fair that they have those opinions. And that's not my opinion, but I'm not in their shoes. And so I won't pretend that I understand what the economic suffering is doing to them to drive them that way. If it's because they believe that they have a personal freedom issue here and that it's unconstitutional, I would just remind people we give up these little small pieces of these things sort of temporarily, frequently, to make society work. Now, if after this is over, they're still trying to rob us of personal freedoms, that's sort of a different thing, and that's when we start revolting. But I don't know. I think there's just tension and there's fear, and it's heightening people's worry, and I get it, and no easy answers.
Okay. So, Eddie, today we are going to share with the audience how toxins cripple your immune system, right? So we are still in the same boat.
Yeah, that's right. And on I think I've been on about 40 different video presentations in the last few weeks, and the subject matters have been pretty narrow and consistent, thinking about immune system and your respiratory system, because these are two sort of key factors. And it's interesting. I had a call earlier in the week with someone that were talking about breath, and they were an expert in that area. So take our advice about the deep breathing now, right? It's a good time, whatever technique you happen to use. But here's the thing I want to remind everybody. Toxins are disruptive to your body. They are we can refer to them as neurotoxins, cadmium, lead, mercury, things like that. They have a negative impact on the brain. They can damage the brain, and they can damage the blood vessel structure in the brain by being disruptive, leading to the development of plaque buildups inside the arteries. And so they're neurotoxic. That can lead to poor memory, right? Even mood disorders. We know people that have lead poisoning, that it affects their mood. It can decrease their IQ and their intelligence. And unfortunately, their ability to process, right? So at the moment where they probably need to be at their greatest wit, all of a sudden they're not, because it's diminishing their function. There's a term called executive function, which is your ability to have simple disciplines of getting up on time and going to bed on time, controlling your intake of food, alcohol, and things like this, paying attention, performing inside a group, right? It's called executive function, becomes compromised when a person is toxic. Fine motor skills become sloppy. So in general, there can be a deterioration in the brain, which of course you need to have all your faculties. And so in your brain, there's a gut-brain connection that impacts the function of your immune system. There's signals going back and forth. And just as on this show, we talk about the role of pro and prebiotics, fermented foods, all this type of stuff on the health of your gut flora, we need to think about these things as it applies to the immune system, as it relates to the brain as well, because essentially more than half of the serotonin that you have in your brain comes out of your gut. And of course, serotonin signals from the brain also affect the function of your immune system. So it's almost impossible to not think that good brain function, good digestion, good gut don't have a direct correlation to the function of your immune system and your immune response. And we know, for example, with some of the research with the COVID-19 virus, that when people get into a crisis situation, their immune system has overreacted, and it's called a cytokine storm that essentially clouds the lungs and allows fluids to gather. This is why people go on ventilators. Very difficult to manage this issue, particularly if you're older and your lung function is diminished. So one of the things people often don't think about, now your breathers, your people advocating for deep breathing will appreciate this. As you get older, particularly if your life is sedentary, your lung capacity diminishes over time. Your lungs are like a balloon that you blow up, but as you get weaker, you don't blow it up as robustly, right? Not as large, and it stiffens, and it finds it difficult to blow up to that same size again, right? So you can't go 10 years not exercising and smoking and then go back and say, all right, I'm going to go exercise and get all this right, and think that your lungs will expand and perform in the same fashion. It's just not true. Well, all of that affects the immune system, because the immune system needs toxins to be out of the body. It needs a good, healthy flow of oxygenated blood to properly work, so that your fundamentally your bone marrow is developing the white blood cells necessary to support the immune system. So all these things are sort of tied together. And that's the main thing I wanted to say today, is that you've got to think about things holistically. There's a term called homeostasis, which is balance. And this is where you're thinking about mind, body, soul. I don't want to get too esoteric for people, but this is all tied together. And so when you consider where's your exposures that can weigh on, from a toxin standpoint, your immune system, it's food. And if your food is ultra processed with a lot of packaging, if your food has a lot of preservatives, if you're buying the food and you can store it for 6 months at the time, right? A lot of preservatives there. It's going to have some toxins. It's going to have some volatile organics. Water that isn't in some way cleaned, the chances of having lead and arsenic, or water that's in plastic bottles. People don't realize that BPAs and things like this, other plasticides, if you've got a bottle of water in a simple plastic bottle that you bought at the local convenience store, it sits in your car. It doesn't even have to be in direct sunlight, but when your car doors are shut during the day and your car interior temperature gets high, it can leach out plastic into your water. And so all of these things are disruptive to the function of the immune system, the lungs. I mean, it's all tied together. Air, we can't always control the air we breathe, but we can give it a best shot, right? Changing filters at your house. If you got air cleaners you can afford, buy those. If you're going to exercise, if you can exercise outside of a busy industrial area, much preferred, because anytime you're increasing your breathing, but you're breathing in more and more polluted air, yeah, you gotta pay attention to that, because you're just exposing yourself. Dental fillings, cosmetics, how you clean your home. You know, one of the things that I have some concern about is how intensely people are using bleach and other products in their home. I understand wanting to kill the virus and those issues, but you know, there are even reports of people wiping their skin down with bleach, things of this kind. Well, your skin possesses a lot of microorganisms that support your body function, including your immune system, and you don't need to kill it, right? That's not the purpose. That's why something like soap, which won't do that, and actually the glycerin in soap will break up the membrane of the virus better than these industrial toxins and cleaners. And so you're doing all that, and then you're breathing those fumes. Well, it's going to have a crippling effect on your lungs and your immune system. It's not good. And so you've got all these exposures, and we can't eliminate them. I'm not naive about that, but we can do a lot to pay attention to it and do the best that we can. Even if you only improve your environmental exposures 10, 15, 20%, think about every day, every year, 10 years, 15, 20 years, these things make an impact. So paying attention to air, trying to stay away from that ultra processed food as much as you possibly can, looking at the personal care products you're smearing on your body, you know, your work environment, what can you do? Being outdoors in a healthy, clean environment, important. Even managing stress, we don't realize that we can damage our immune system because we're stressed. Those stress hormones play a role in dumbing down the performance of the immune system, actually will impact the macrophages, which are the large white blood cells that you really need, particularly in dealing with cancer and other pathogens of that kind. And so all these things matter. So eat as good as you can, you know, fresh fruits and veggies so that you've got some nutrients, dense nutrients going into the body. Exercise, the breathing exercises, two separate things, right? Exercise in terms of movement. If the best you can do is a little bit of walking, do a little bit of walking. But no matter who you are, you can go to YouTube and you can Google breathing exercises. And in a few minutes every day, a couple times a day if you can improve lung capacity, getting rid of toxins, and improve the function of your immune system. Also will help you with sleep, which is important. I believe in the role of nutrition, so paying attention to pre and probiotics, our super green juice, our Super Greens Plus D. If you've got your favorite versions, you know, use them. But in a modern world, it's almost impossible to think you get it just from food. And so the role of pre and probiotics can play is important. Vitamin D. We've learned that vitamin D can play a role in your immune system. We believe in using the D2 that comes from mushrooms because of the other micronutrients associated with it in performance. Vitamin D is important. CBD oil. A lot of people don't realize that CBD, cannabidiol, specifically that cannabinoid, can downregulate cytokines in their performance, which is critical in the immune system. Then, of course, zeolite. Zeolite, a good quality zeolite like our Pure Body Regular, Pure Body Extra can support the elimination of these toxins that greatly impact how that immune system works. So, you know, this is hopefully for people common sense advice. A lot of what I don't want to do is just remind you of it. I wished I knew how to inspire you to go out there and embrace it. Whatever you do, though, look at your environment. Say, what can I do? What's within my grasp? Is it just a deep breathing exercise? Is it a cold shower in the morning? Right? What are the things that you can do to have a positive impact? Because you want a robust, functioning immune system.
Yeah, cold shower we can have during winter time, maybe. hot season, we have hot shower here. Very hot shower.
I'll bet you do. And you probably wish you had that cold shower, right? You said it was pretty warm right now, huh?
Yeah, pretty warm.
Yeah.
Eddie, thank you so much for
Thank
today.
you, Pari.
So, yeah, we see you again next time, okay?
Yeah, everybody be safe. Take care of yourself. Do the best you can.
Okay, see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.